Today, we're going to talk to a super knowledgeable lover of the reef, Ocean State Aquatics' own Salty Allie. What's up, coral people? If you're new here, my name is Remy, and this is the Bahama Llama Coral YouTube channel. If at any point during this video you're like, you know what?
I like this.
Then go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you're notified whenever I upload new videos. This is a different video than my usual, an experiment, if you will. I don't care who you are in the hobby, you can tell pretty quickly when someone knows what they're talking about. You know that I've always admired Scott Crowe and Ocean State Aquatics and his work ethic and drive. Along with that, the consistent need to progress and innovate and train the next generation of reefing hobbyists. Last year, we started to see a lot more of two people on the Ocean State Aquatics YouTube page and their Facebook page, as well as Instagram. I'm talking about Freshwater Joe and Salty Allie. They're leading short video tutorials, feedings, maintenance, shop tours, and so much more. The best part is they're both super knowledgeable on this hobby we all love. I recently reached out to Saltwater Allie to see if she'd want to chat with me on the channel about her personal tank and what she does at Ocean State Aquatics. I really enjoyed our talk, and I hope you do too. Allie, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited.
I want to start from the beginning. I want to start with how you grew up and where your love of reef keeping came from.
Yeah, of course. So it's kind of funny. It's not really like the traditional way. So when I was born into actually a fisherman family. So my dad is a commercial fisherman, and my brothers were both commercial fishermen also from very young ages. And that's what I was born into. So I was actually born into quite the opposite. It was more like, killing fish than keeping them.
Eating them?
Yeah, so I mean, but that's where it started. You know, I had a lot of fun playing with the fish, and like holding them and looking at all the different stuff he would get. And, and I loved it. But we also had a fish tank too. So we always had we had a 50-gallon cube. It was like super old. It had like the wooden framing on the outside, on the bottom and the top, and we had quite the menagerie of fish. It just totally didn't, it was all just so wrong, but it was a long time ago. So he had an Oscar, a Jack Dempsey, and a goldfish, and gold severums in this 50-gallon cube.
Yep, that sounds familiar. I remember having those same exact fish when I was a kid.
Yep, and that's really where it started. And I had a ton of animals. We had everything, but I loved the fish tanks. And then as I got started growing up, I got to have my own tank as I was like more able to take care of it. From a very young age, I was probably 10 when he let me have my own tank. And he wouldn't, it was just my tank, so I had to take care of it and do everything. And I did it so wrong. Like, I cringe about it today. Like, honestly, I did things wrong for quite a long time until I really, started to learn more about it. But, I would drain the entire tank out, take all the water out. I would put the fish in a bowl, and I would rinse out the gravel, dump it out, and clean it with soap and water, and the whole 9 yards. It was so bad. But I loved it. I had a lot of fun with it. And then, as I learned more about it, the more I really actually came to love it and knew what I was doing. And I've always been in it. It's always been, never saltwater. Saltwater was new for me as an adult. I adopted that as an adult. That wasn't a thing my dad was into. But, the freshwater is where it all started.
So if you are curious as to who Allie is, she is Salty Allie from Ocean State Aquatics. We'll get into your job there, but I wanted to get into your personal tank and the reef that you have at your house. Can you kind of take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So I have actually 2 tanks, and if you look at my social media, you really only see one, and that's my 120-gallon tank. I do have a 65-gallon, which is actually where my saltwater hobby started, was with the 65. I had always wanted a saltwater for a long time, and my fiance was like, would you be interested in still doing a saltwater tank? And I think he's dreading that right now because he didn't realize how much he would get into it. But so we went into PetSmart. We were at a restaurant right next door. We went in there. I bought this 65-gallon tank with a stand. You know, super cheap. It was like $325. It's not reef ready at all. It's just a tank and a stand, and that's how I started. It was with that. You know, I had a hang-on back skimmer, and honestly, it worked. It worked really well for a while. That was about it'll be 4 years this in November. And 2 years ago, I was on Craigslist, which is dangerous, and I found this guy selling a 120-gallon tank with the stand, the canopy, the sump, the return pump, and T5 lighting for $325. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll come get it. So I ended up with 2 tanks, and the 120, you know, the stand was all rotted out, and the return pump was junk, and the lighting was just junk. So unfortunately, that all had to go. But I kept the sump in the tank, and we built a stand for that. And that just kind of became my love, I think, because I was doing it the right way. It just like seemed to fall into place a little bit better, and things just started to come together better, and it was just doing well, so that's where all my attention went, and that's kind of still kind of how it is today.
How's your 120 stocked? Do you have, I know you have corals, but what kind of fish do you keep in there? What's your favorite coral?
Yeah, so it's a mixed reef. I have everything really in it, as far as like, I have it's mainly LPS. LPS is my favorite like group of coral. I love, you know, my favorite are brain corals, like trachees, lobos. Those are all meat corals. Those are all my favorites. When I first started, I was like all into the flowy, which I noticed as working in the aquarium hobby, I see that as a beginner, that's how most people start, is they really like the flowy, you know, they want torches and, you know, all of that. So that's how I was too. And then as I started to get into that, I actually really started to love the brains more. So those are definitely my favorite, but it's definitely a big variety in there. It's leathers, LPS, SPS. I got a clam in there. I have an anemone in there, which I just braved. I was really nervous, and I wouldn't do it for so long because I'm so worried about my corals. But my clowns were killing a coral, so I had to do something. But so it's a big variety. As far as fish goes, it's a little heavily stocked, but I run a refugium on there to help combat that. But I have my favorite is my 3-foot zebra moray eel. He's awesome. Such a cool fish. He's definitely my favorite. I also have a mandarin dragonet in there, which is also my favorite. I actually just got them tattooed on my arm. I love them. And then as far, the other fish, I've got, I've got an anthias. I got lots of wrasses. Wrasses is my favorite genre of fish too. I love them. I love all of the wrasses. So I've got 4 different species in that tank. Clownfish.
So I wanted to ask, so you've been going, you're trucking along, you're doing your reefing thing, you're going to school, and then Scott Crowe comes along and he's like, hey, you want to work for me? Is that how that all went? Or how did you start at Ocean State Aquatics?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So I was his customer for a while. I used to work at Critter Hut, which is a local family-owned pet store that's pretty local, and we did some stuff with saltwater, but very minimal. But that's where I got really into the saltwater, was seeing the fish we would get in. They were just amazing, and I really wanted a tank. But, we weren't super specialized in that. That wasn't really our thing. We mainly were freshwater dogs, cats, that kind of thing. So, I had a coworker who was like, hey, there's this cool place called Ocean State Aquatics. You should check it out. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll make a drive one day. And I came, and Scott greeted me the way he always does. Hey, how you doing? Like I knew him forever, and he treats everybody like that. Every new person that comes in, it's like he's known you forever. And it was fun. It got me excited about everything, because he was excited, and he got me set up with my first coral, which was a GSP, green star polyps. And I took that home, and I started to see it to grow, and I would come in here and get more corals, and he really helped me. And I was coming here for probably like a year or two. I know it was a year I was coming here. And then I was coming in a lot. I didn't have an RO system, so I had to buy water. So I was here a lot. And yeah. One day I came in, and there was no one here. It was just him. He goes, so I've been thinking of hiring somebody. That's all he said. And I was like, oh, me. Like right away, I will gladly do that. Like, this is my passion. I just love it. Like, I was literally here I was probably here 4 times a week anyway, and I was like, I practically am already here, so, and he was like, oh, well, if you're okay with that, then come, just message me, let me know. as soon as I left, I sent him a message. I was like, I can bring a resume like on Tuesday if you want. And he was like, all right, I'll see you Tuesday. I come in, and Chris was sitting here. He's my manager, and he goes, so what day are you starting? And I was like, what do you mean? Because I was thinking I was coming in for like an interview or something. He was like, I was like, I got the job? And he was like, well, yeah, of course you did. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. And they were just like, come in on Wednesday or whatever. And I was like, all right. And that's really it. And I worked 2 jobs. I worked both for a little while. And Scott got really serious about me working full time. And I unfortunately had to leave Critter Hut, which was tough for me because they were like family to me. But, you know, one door closes, another opens. So it, you know, worked out and it was fine. It ended well. And, you know, this is my new family now. So.
Did you ever think that you would be doing maintenance on tanks and doing stuff around the shop, but then also being such a big part of a YouTube channel?
Definitely not. So when I first started, he really just wanted someone to like clean the tanks, you know, because Chris was managing and he was ordering things and he just couldn't do everything by himself. So, because it was really just Chris and Scott in the retail store, so he really just needed somebody to just keep everything clean and looking good. So that's what I came in to do, and I was just cleaning, and then one day he's like, all right, live video time. And I was like, what? Like, I'd never done anything like that. And he was like, yeah, we gotta do a live video. And I was like, okay, I've never done that before. And I'm like, I was super shy, honestly. Like, you know, I could talk to people in person and that was fine, but as soon as like a camera was around, I got all shy. Still working on that, but it was definitely like a big shock for me. And then it just kind of got more and more. And then Joe started working, and then he became like the big media person, and then I kind of just got also part of that. So, but definitely was not what I expected at all.
What's your day-to-day life at the store? What are you doing?
So I am doing retail, so I help customers. I get them what they need. I help them with any questions they have. I get them any corals they want or fish. But I also mainly I'm still scraping tanks. You know, I scrape tanks all day, every day. Always cleaning and changing the coral racks out because they get algae on them. So that's a big part, is doing that. I also order dry goods too, and I order fish, which is fun. That's my favorite part.
What's something that you believe in the hobby that not many others agree with you on?
So it's actually a couple things. You know, I kind of had to think about it because, you know, I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, what do I do? But there's a couple things, and I don't know if they're super significant or not. First one, I do not believe in siphoning your sand bed. I mean, I know there's a big controversy with that. You know, there's a ton of people that don't do it, and there's a ton of people that do it. I'm one of those people that won't touch it. I will not touch my sand bed. I think you should leave it alone. But, you know, some people will agree to disagree. Another thing, too, that's like a really weird thing with me is I, believe it or not, like doing what I do here, you wouldn't believe it, but I don't like fragging my corals in my tank. I am not about that. I mean, I have no issue with it, but I like my corals to be big, and unless I have to, I won't frag my corals. I think it looks best when it's, you know, full and big. I know there's a ton of people who do it and frag their corals, you know, and that's really awesome. I just can't do it. I don't know. I love seeing a big full reef. So that's one thing I just don't do.
I think once I get a decent sized display tank, that'll be the goal for sure. To
absolutely.
Just, I mean, because it's so rare anymore when you see a giant colony of zoanthids or a giant colony of acro. You know what I mean? It's just
absolutely.
We're so used to seeing frags online everywhere. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Definitely fun to let everything grow out.
Yeah, I'm all about just like it looking as natural as possible. That's a big thing for me. Is like I want my tank to look natural. Like I don't want it to look like a bunch of little frags, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't like to see a frag plug. I like want that all covered and full, and you know, I just kind of let things grow unless I have to cut it. You know, if it's just they're growing into each other and I have to, you know, that's fine. I like it full. I like it looking as natural as possible. So.
And what's your favorite reef hack?
So mine, I don't know if it's really a hack, I guess, but my refugium, it's so like, I don't even know how to, it's just like totally not proper at all, but it works for me. And I run my refugium with hair algae. That's all it is. I have Chaeto in there, But honestly, the hair algae has just like totally taken over, but it's honestly the best nutrient export I've ever had in there. It works really well, and you got to be careful with it. You don't want it to get in your display, so I don't always recommend that. But it has worked for me really, really, really well, especially with like that big moray eel in there. My nitrates were super high before. They would always sit at 80, which is really high. Corals don't like that. So I started the refugium for that reason. I have a $50 Home Depot grow light on top. It's one of like those purple grow lights for plants.
Yeah.
And it works really well. Like, the hair algae just started to take over at one point, and I just kind of let it. I take a couple handfuls of hair algae out twice a week, and it just works, you know. So I don't know if it's really a hack or anything, but it's something. It works.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. What is one of the weirdest questions you've ever been asked at the shop from a hobbyist?
So I could make a book, honestly. I try not to bash people because we've all been beginners at one point, but it's just, it amazes me. My favorite question that I ever got was a woman came in and she wanted to buy 2 betta fish. And I was like, well, you know, they can't live together. And she was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, do you have a tanks for them so they can, you know, you can separate them? She's like, no. And I was like, okay, so you probably need to get a couple tanks. And she was like, yeah. Do I have to? And I was like, well, yeah. They're like, they need tanks. Like, and she was like, well, could they just live in the bags? Swear to God, that's what she said. And
wow.
I was like, no, they need oxygen. They need to be able to breathe, like betta fish breathe air, all fish, you know, need oxygen. She was like, well, what if I poke holes in the bag? Will that be okay?
Oh, man.
And this was, I swear, I can't make that up. That was a real question I got. She wasn't, you know, a hobbyist per se, obviously, but that's my favorite one, honestly. But yeah, I get a lot of, I've had people ask me if they can keep a Nemo in a bowl. I've got lots of pretty interesting questions. What's the difference between saltwater and freshwater? Like, actually, what is the difference? Somebody bought a goldfish as a friend for their clownfish and didn't understand why the goldfish was dying. And I told her one was freshwater and one was saltwater, and she said, well, what's the difference? So,
you know what? You should write a book. You should
honestly,
cash in on that.
I've got a bunch. I'm sure between all of us, we could have a pretty good one. Everyone's been there. Everyone's been new before, so I try not to laugh too bad, but sometimes it's funny. You know, you gotta laugh at it.
Well, Allie, I want to thank you so much for your knowledge. I really appreciate that, and I don't think that goes unnoticed on the YouTube channel, on OSA's YouTube channel, and just in the reefing community. So thank you for that, and also thank you so much for being on my channel today.
Of course, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun, and I'm always like happy to answer questions. You know, if anyone sees it and they want to ask me any questions, I'm totally, you know, open to that. So
we'll go ahead and plug your Instagram channel, as well as you can always get in touch at OSA Choice, their Instagram, and I'll link that all in the description below.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I again want to thank Saltwater Allie for being on the channel today, as well as Freshwater Joe for shooting all of that. He was there to document the entire thing, and then had to send me the SD card because it was like 25 gigabytes of footage that we had to filter through. So instead of uploading all the footage to the internet and then downloading it and then putting it in a folder and all that, I just said, you know what, we'll take a couple days, send me the SD card, and then I'll just have the hard copy of everything. So thank you, Freshwater Joe. Now the question is, who should I talk to next? Make sure to leave a comment down below with your suggestion. This isn't going to become an interview channel, I promise. It's just a nice change of pace every once in a while. For these longer types of videos, I like to have it on while I'm fragging or while I'm doing a water change. It's just good company down here in the Llama's lair. Some other great YouTubers to check out that do long form content. Obviously, you probably know Mark Levinson or Me Loves Reef. I enjoy his content a lot. He streams a ton, and sometimes his streams can go for 1, 2, 3 hours long. And I just love having that on while I'm doing stuff down here. It's just nice because there's so much good content. There's so many good things, tips, and tricks that I can use and utilize in my reefing hobby. Another good one is Fish of Hex. Travis tells it like it is, and he's also a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the reefing hobby. Maybe you missed it, but I was also recently on Telegram's channel. You probably know Telegram as the Inappropriate Reefers Reef Sensei. Jim was an electrical engineer in the military. He did a lot of electrical stuff on aircraft, so he has a wealth of knowledge in and outside of the hobby as well. So go check out his channel. I'll link everything in the description below. My background is in radio broadcasts, so interviewing people is just something that comes naturally at this point. So it's a lot of fun for me to pick other reefers' brains to see what's going on. So please suggest anybody who you think I should interview in the comment section below. And if you liked this video, go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you're notified whenever I upload new videos. This happened today. You may notice my shirt. I'm not from the New England area, and I did not attend Fragtoberfest. I also know about Wet Pets Emporium, but I've never been there. Perhaps this was a tease of an upcoming video. And because you didn't click away after I said like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're notified whenever I post new videos, you are privy to this knowledge. You know what this is? It's the tiniest frag rack in the world. Also could be used to keep the box from touching your pizza. Think about that. Smells like fish.